Hi, I'm Faith Pinot from LA Times Studios in Washington, D.C. Here's some of today's top stories from the Los Angeles Times. The nation's airports are finally getting back to normal after weeks of disruption. According to the FAA, all remaining flight restrictions put in place during the record 43-day government shutdown were lifted Monday morning. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and FAA Administrator Brian Bedford made the announcement Sunday, saying regular schedules can resume at 40 major airports. Those include some of the busiest hubs in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, and Atlanta. The FAA says the safety team recommended ending the order after seeing steady improvements in staffing levels and fewer safety trigger events inside air traffic control facilities. The restrictions began November 7th, starting as a 4% cut in flights and growing to 6% as staffing shortages worsened. Controller numbers slowly bounced back after the shutdown ended Wednesday, allowing the FAA to roll the cuts back to 3% by Friday. Data shows the system is already rebounding. Cirium reported fewer than 1% of flights were canceled this weekend. And travelers are feeling the relief. At Denver International, one passenger told reporters he was glad the shutdown ended before the holiday rush.
I'm glad that it ended before Thanksgiving. I've got family coming into town. Looks like they'll be able to make it here. I'm happy that the cut was only 3% this weekend. I was wondering whether I would be able to make this trip, given the state of affairs. I've been keeping track of the cancellations, and I didn't get any notifications, so here I am today. Looks like I'm going to be able to make it to Europe. I'm happy about that. So, yeah, I guess on the whole, I'm pretty pleased with this recovery from the shutdown.
Now, airline leaders say they expect operations to fully stabilize before Thanksgiving as flight schedules return to normal this week. And over the weekend, a major shift from President Trump as he reverses course on the push to release files from the Jeffrey Epstein case. According to reporters, the president is now urging House Republicans to vote in favor of making those documents public. Trump posted the announcement on social media late Sunday, saying he has nothing to hide and calling the Epstein files a Democrat hoax. The move signals an acknowledgement that the measure will likely pass the House, even as its future in the Senate remains unclear. For months, the president and GOP leadership opposed the bill, but support has grown fast. Republican Thomas Massie said Sunday that more than 100 Republicans could join Democrats to force action on the bill, requiring the Justice Department to release all the files on Epstein, including emails and communications related to his alleged sex trafficking ring and the federal investigation into his 2019 death. However, lawmakers say victim information and active case details could still be redacted. The pressure has been building for weeks. A discharge petition launched by Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna crossed the 218 signature threshold last week after Representative Adelita Grijalva was sworn in. That move forced a vote over the objections of Speaker Mike Johnson and the president. But even Johnson now says the House will likely pass the bill. Here's what he had to say about it on Fox News Sunday.
He had nothing to do with it. President Trump has clean hands. He's not worried about it. I talk to him all the time. He has nothing to do with this. He's frustrated that they're turning it into a political issue, and it's not surprising because the Democrats have nothing else to talk about. What have they accomplished in 10 months? Epstein is their entire game plan. So we're going to take that weapon out of their hand this week. They hit the 218 signature threshold. And you know what I did? I offered it on the floor to pass by unanimous consent, the discharge petition. Guess who objected? The Democrats. If they were really for transparency, if this is really about helping victims and all that, they would not have stopped the passage of the discharge petition. So it'll be on the floor again next week. I suspect there'll be lots of votes that will just get this done and move it on. There's nothing to hide. And the Oversight Committee is releasing far more information than the discharge petition, their little gambit, ever even anticipated. They never even mentioned in the discharge the Epstein estate files, and that is the treasure trove of documents that's given us Epstein's flight logs, his personal records, his financial ledgers, his daily calendar. None of that was anticipated. So the discharge is totally moot. It is a political exercise, and we're going to dispense with that this week.
Okay. The upcoming vote has caused a division in the Republican Party. A small group of Trump's allies, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, broke with him and signed the petition, arguing that the public deserves transparency. Lawmakers are expected to vote on the bill Tuesday, but despite the swift action by the House, there's still no guarantee of when or if the measure will pass the Senate. And on Monday, a federal judge slammed the Justice Department for what he calls a disturbing pattern of missteps in the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. According to Eric Tucker, Judge William Fitzpatrick ordered prosecutors to turn over all grand jury materials to Comey's defense team. Comey was indicted in late September on 2 federal charges, making a false statement and obstructing a congressional proceeding, charges he denies. In a strong 24-page opinion, Judge Fitzpatrick accused the DOJ of making, quote, fundamental misstatements of the law to the grand jury, saying they used potentially privileged information and allowed irregularities in the transcript of proceedings. The judge wrote, quote, the record points to a disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps, warning that an FBI agent and a prosecutor may have undermined the integrity of the grand jury. Comey's lawmakers had pushed for access to those materials, citing concerns that the grand jury process was tainted. The prosecutor who presented the case was interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, a former White House aide with no prior prosecution experience, appointed just days before the indictment. The case is facing multiple legal challenges, including arguments that Halligan was unlawfully installed and that the charges amount to vindictive prosecution. The judge's order to produce these grand jury records could shift the whole battle and raises questions about how the DOJ has handled this high-profile case. And South Carolina lawmakers are taking up what could become the strictest abortion law in the country. According to Jeffrey Collins, the bill gets a second hearing Tuesday. The proposal bans all abortions unless a woman's life is at risk and eliminates exceptions for rape and incest. But it goes even further. Women who get an abortion, and anyone who helps them, could face up to 30 years in prison. The bill also appears to ban IUDs and would heavily restrict in vitro therapy, or IVF, outlawing any contraception that prevents a fertilized egg from implanting. Doctors say this would turn routine care into a legal minefield and is the most extreme bill since the overturning of Roe v. Wade in 2022. OBGYN Natalie Gregory told state lawmakers that the bill threatens the very fabric of healthcare in the state. She warned that it would criminalize basic conversations about contraception, miscarriage, and IVF. The proposal has split anti-abortion groups statewide. South Carolina Citizens for Life says it cannot support punishing women, but groups like Equal Protection South Carolina argue that abortion is murder and should carry the same penalties. Meanwhile, legal scholars warn that this fight is part of a broader shift on the rights of women's health care. UC Davis professor Mary Ziegler says so-called abolitionists are pushing harder than ever for extreme laws, even if they don't have widespread public support. The bill faces a long road, and Republican Senate leaders say there's no guarantee it will even get a full vote. But with new conservative members in the chamber and a sponsor who is one of the state's strongest anti-abortion voices, the debate is shaping up to be a very long fight. And Southern California is still soaked after a major storm brought heavy rain to the region over the weekend. According to Rebecca Ellis, the National Weather Service says downtown LA just notched its wettest November ever. Already, the city saw more than 2.5 inches of rain this month, beating a record from 1985. And forecasters say it's not done yet. The rain has drenched LA Saturday and lingered into Sunday, came down hard enough to trigger a flood advisory. It brought real relief from a long, dry stretch, but it also threatened mudslides in areas hit by January's wildfires. The good news is that there's no major damage so far reported in Altadena or the Pacific Palisades. But Angelenos should get ready for another gray stretch. Officials say 2 more storms are lining up this week. The first one moves in Monday, bringing light rain starting mid-morning and lasting all the way through Tuesday, with another inch of rain expected. And there's a small chance of thunderstorms, so for those in the Santa Ynez Range or western Ventura Mountains, you could see pockets of heavier rain. And storm number 2 arrives later in the week. Forecast models show light to moderate rain, but the timing and strength are still uncertain. As of Monday morning, evacuation orders across LA County are lifted, but officials want drivers to slow down and watch for changing road conditions. Meanwhile, Malibu residents are being told to stay alert for mudslides and debris in the canyons. For now, keep that umbrella close, stay alert, and practice safety on your daily commutes. That's it for now. To read these stories and more, be sure to subscribe to the LA Times.